Hey there, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into this book. It's called Beyond the Feminist Veil, The Duality of Masculinity.
By Conrad Riker.
Yeah, by Conrad Riker. And I'm guessing you guys are already pretty familiar with the whole toxic masculinity debate.
Oh, yeah.
But this book goes way beyond the surface.
Definitely.
It really does.
It does.
So what's fascinating about Riker's approach
Well, yeah.
is that he doesn't just, rail against feminism.
Right.
You know?
He doesn't just rant and rave.
He traces it back. He actually traces its evolution starting from the suffragettes all the way to the modern movements.
Exactly. He starts at the beginning and kind of lays out the progression of it.
And he points out that early feminism had this kind of inherent paradox, wanting equality with men, but also wanting to maintain distinct roles for women.
Yeah, they wanted to kind of have it both ways.
So what you're saying is they wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
That's one way to put it.
They wanted the benefits of equality without giving up any of the privileges of the traditional gender roles.
That's a simplified way to look at it,
Yeah.
but that's essentially the gist of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what Riker argues is as feminism progresses, its goals shift a little bit.
Okay.
It wasn't just about the legal rights anymore. It started challenging the very essence of masculinity itself.
And that's where this whole anti-male narrative comes in.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like suddenly men are the enemy.
Suddenly the enemy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Riker, he has a lot of good examples about how certain feminist ideologies paint men as inherently problematic. Just think about how often you see men portrayed as the aggressors or the villains
Oh, yeah.
in movies, in TV shows, even in news stories. It's like this constant drip feed of negativity that can really wear you down over time.
That's not just in the media, right? Riker talks about how this narrative plays out in our legal systems, too.
Yes.
Like in divorce courts and custody battles. There's often this assumption that men are the bad guys, even when there's no evidence to support it.
Absolutely. Yeah, he dives into some specific examples, like the financial burden of divorce settlements and alimony often falls disproportionately on men. Riker's argument is that these systems that were initially designed to protect women can sometimes be weaponized against men, leading to financial ruin even when they've been, responsible partners.
It's almost like there's this covert contract that men are forced to sign without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Like we're expected to be the providers and protectors, but then we're punished for it when things go wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And it ties into the double bind, right?
It does. It does. I mean, how do you reconcile being strong and stoic,
right,
but then also being sensitive and emotionally available?
It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And it plays out in real life in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the guy who loses his job and he feels like he can't express his emotions because he has to be the strong one for his family.
Yeah.
Or the guy who's going through a divorce and he's just bottling everything up inside because he doesn't want to appear weak. And this
That starts early.
It does.
Yeah, it starts early.
Like boys are discouraged from expressing their emotions, showing vulnerability.
Absolutely. Man up, suck it up.
Exactly.
And then later in life, they're criticized for being emotionally stunted or distant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, no wonder so many men are struggling with this.
Exactly.
Right.
And Riker argues that this pressure to conform to these rigid and often contradictory expectations can have serious consequences for men's mental health.
Oh, absolutely. He cites statistics about high rates of male suicide, depression, substance abuse.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever felt that pressure?
Oh, absolutely.
To be strong and stoic, even when you're falling apart inside?
I think most men have.
Yeah.
At some point in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's why Riker's message about the importance of vulnerability is so powerful. He's not saying that men should become overly emotional or weak.
Right.
He's saying that we need to give ourselves permission to feel the full range of human emotions.
Okay.
Including sadness, fear, and grief.
So it's not about suppressing those.
No, it's about
acknowledging them.
Acknowledging them, processing them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Because by embracing our vulnerability, we can actually become stronger and more resilient.
It's like if you try to suppress them, they just get bigger and scarier.
They fester. They come out in unhealthy ways.
Yeah, but if you can just kind of acknowledge it, it loses his power over you.
Ex
And that ties into another point that he makes, which is this whole idea of men connecting with other men.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Like,
strong male friendships.
yeah.
Men they can confide in.
Sometimes it's easier to open up to another guy who gets it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, someone who's been there.
Yeah.
Someone who understands.
Yeah. Yeah. And Riker suggests that this kind of male bonding is essential
It is.
for men's mental and emotional well-being.
It provides a safe space to share struggles, to process emotions, to find strength in each other.
Now, speaking of things that can be tough to talk about, Riker also tackles the economic impact of feminist policies.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of you guys are feeling the squeeze.
Yeah.
He breaks down how things like affirmative action and gender quotas can actually disadvantage men in the workplace.
Yeah, he provides some pretty jarring examples. For instance, he highlights cases where men are passed over for promotions or even laid off in favor of less qualified women simply to meet diversity quotas. It's like the system is rigged against us even when we're doing everything right.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole issue of divorce settlements, alimony payments. Riker argues that these systems, while sometimes necessary, can be exploited, leaving men financially devastated while their ex-partners thrive.
So it's like we're being punished for being providers,
Right.
even when we've done nothing wrong.
You're penalized for your success.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And that goes back to the covert contract idea, right?
It does. It all ties together.
Yeah, like we're expected to be the breadwinners, but then when things go wrong,
Right.
we're the ones who,
You take the fall.
yeah, we take the fall. Yeah,
And it's a tough situation for a lot of guys.
it really is.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I think a lot of men are struggling with.
Absolutely.
And they don't feel like they have any recourse.
No. No, they feel trapped.
Yeah.
And that's what Riker is trying to address.
And Riker, he doesn't just like present these problems.
No, he offers solutions.
He offers solutions. So what are some of the things that he suggests?
One of his biggest recommendations is for men to really focus on their physical and mental health.
Okay.
He talks about the importance of exercise, nutrition, stress management.
So it's not just about hitting the gym to like look good.
No, it's about feeling good.
Feeling good. It's about,
Yeah.
boosting your confidence, improving your mood.
It's about building that strong foundation for yourself,
Yes,
physically and mentally.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that ties into his emphasis on personal development, learning new skills, pursuing your passions, becoming the best version of yourself.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, it's
And
about
taking ownership.
taking ownership of your life, becoming the man you were meant to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he also talks a lot about the importance of finding a purpose, something that gives your life meaning and direction.
Yeah.
It could be your work, your family, your hobbies, even a cause you believe in.
And that's something that I think a lot of men are lacking today.
They are.
Right. They are. Like we've kind of lost our way,
They've lost their way.
our sense of direction.
Yes, their sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And he says, don't wait for someone else to hand you a purpose. Go out and find it yourself.
Take control of your own destiny.
Exactly.
Yeah, shape your life instead of letting it shape you.
Absolutely.
And speaking of taking control, Riker also encourages men to be more assertive
Yes.
in their relationships. And I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
We've been taught to be the nice guy,
Right.
to always be agreeable.
Right.
But he's saying, that kind of passivity can be harmful.
It can be harmful. It can lead to resentment, feeling taken advantage of, a loss of self-respect.
So what's the alternative? Like, are we supposed to become domineering jerks?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Assertiveness isn't about being aggressive or controlling. It's about clearly communicating your needs and boundaries,
Okay.
about standing up for yourself, and being willing to walk away from relationships that are no longer serving you.
So it's about finding that balance between
Exactly.
being respectful of others,
Yeah.
but also
But being true to yourself.
being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he argues that that's essential for creating strong
It is.
and fulfilling relationships.
It is.
Yeah. And that leads us to another big topic that he tackles, which is fatherhood.
Yes.
And he argues that society has really devalued the role of fathers.
It has.
We're often portrayed as like,
bumbling idiots.
Bumbling idiots.
Or worse,
Yeah.
threats to our children.
Yeah, and he's trying to push back against that narrative.
He is
Right.
To really highlight how important fathers are. And
absolutely.
he points to studies showing that children with involved fathers tend to do better, right?
They do.
They tend to be.
They're more emotionally stable. They perform better academically. They have fewer behavioral problems.
So it's not just about like being a provider,
Yeah.
bringing home the bacon.
Yeah.
It's about being present.
It's about being present,
Yeah.
being emotionally engaged,
Being a role model.
being a role model.
Yep.
And Riker argues that fatherhood can be incredibly rewarding for men, too. It gives us a sense of purpose, connection, legacy.
I'm really glad that he includes this in the book because I think it's something that a lot of men are hungry for.
They are.
That validation of the importance of fatherhood.
Absolutely. Yeah, they need that affirmation
Yeah.
that what they're doing matters.
Yeah. And he talks about the challenges that fathers face in society, particularly in the legal system, and how custody courts often favor mothers,
Yes.
even when the fathers are loving and capable parents.
And he argues that this bias against fathers is harmful to both men and children. It deprives children of the love and support of their fathers. And it leaves men feeling alienated and powerless.
So what's the solution? I mean, how do we fight back against that bias?
He encourages men to be proactive,
Okay.
to educate themselves about their rights, to seek legal counsel from attorneys who specialize in men's issues. He also emphasizes the importance of documenting everything.
Okay.
Every interaction,
Right.
every expense, every attempt to connect with your children.
So it's like you got to be your own advocate, your own detective,
You have to.
just to have a fighting chance.
Unfortunately, yes.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but it's necessary.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like you're up against a brick wall
It does.
when the entire system seems stacked against you.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
But he stresses that it's crucial for men to fight for their rights as fathers. And he reminds them that they're not alone in this fight.
Yeah.
There are numerous fathers' rights groups and organizations that offer support and resources.
And sometimes just knowing that there are other people out there going through the same thing can be a huge source of strength.
It can. It
Yeah.
can. Just
Yeah.
knowing that you're not alone
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
Now, I want to shift gears just a bit and talk about something that's a really sensitive topic,
Okay.
and that's false accusations,
Yes.
particularly in the context of the hashtag #MeToo movement. And Riker acknowledges...
It does. The importance of the Me Too movement.
Yeah, he acknowledges the importance of the hashtag #MeToo movement in bringing attention to the issue of sexual assault
Right.
and holding perpetrators accountable. But he also expresses concern that the movement has created a climate where due process
Right.
is sometimes overlooked.
Yes.
And men can be easily accused and condemned without sufficient evidence.
Yeah, he's concerned that the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction.
It's like now there's a presumption of guilt against men in these situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not saying that we should dismiss accusations of sexual assault. He's just stressing the importance of fairness,
Right.
due process.
So how do we find that balance
Right.
between believing women, but also ensuring that men aren't unjustly punished?
That's the challenge, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's something that society's still grappling with.
Yeah.
And Riker encourages men to be aware of this issue, to take steps to protect themselves,
Okay.
being cautious about their interactions with women, documenting any potential misunderstandings, and seeking legal counsel immediately if they're accused of any wrongdoing.
It's sad that we even have to think about these things.
It is.
But in today's climate, it's important for men to be aware of the risks.
It is. It's about
Yeah.
being informed and taking steps to protect yourself.
Yeah, and it's not about...
It's not about living in fear.
Yeah.
It's about being
smart.
smart,
Yeah.
informed, and cautious.
Yeah, and he emphasizes that this is not about undermining
Right.
the legitimate claims of women who have
Yeah.
experienced sexual assault.
Exactly.
It's about making sure that the pursuit of justice is fair.
fair and equitable.
And equitable for everyone involved.
For everyone.
Yeah.
It's about finding that middle ground.
That middle ground.
That balance.
Yeah, between protecting victims and ensuring that the innocent aren't unjustly punished.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really complex issue.
It is.
And I appreciate that
he doesn't shy away from it.
He doesn't shy away from it. He tackles it head on.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Speaking of things that are...
Speaking of tackling things head on.
Right.
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 He also, he critiques the woke movement.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes into quite a bit of detail about that.
Yeah, I was really interested in that section of the book. What's his take on how wokeness is impacting men specifically?
Well, he argues that wokeness, with its focus on identity politics and its tendency to view everything through the lens of power and oppression, has created a culture where men are often portrayed as the villains.
Yeah.
You know, and he sees this as an extension of that anti-male narrative that we were talking about earlier, where men are inherently suspect simply by virtue of their gender.
And it's not just about being called out for your privilege, right?
Right.
It's about this feeling
Yes.
that you can't say anything right.
You're walking on eggshells.
You're walking on eggshells.
All the time. You know, afraid of offending someone or being labeled a sexist or misogynist.
Yeah, yeah.
And he argues that this climate of fear and censorship is incredibly damaging to open dialogue and debate.
Right.
He believes that it's essential for men to be able to express their opinions and perspectives without fear of retribution.
It's like, how can we have a meaningful conversation about any of these issues?
Exactly.
If one side is constantly being silent.
Exactly. You can't have a real discussion if people are afraid to speak their minds.
Yeah, and he also critiques the way in which wokeness promotes victimhood and a sense of grievance.
Right.
And this idea that you're
always the victim.
Yeah, you're always a victim.
Someone's always oppressing you. You have no power.
Yeah, you're powerless.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that can be especially damaging for men.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Because we're already grappling with this sense of emasculation.
Right.
This pressure to be stoic and unemotional. It's like we're being told we're not allowed to feel anything.
Right.
Our experiences don't matter.
Your feelings are invalid.
Yeah.
Your experiences don't count.
Yeah, yeah. And he argues that this is
a dangerous trend.
A very dangerous trend that needs to be
challenged.
Yeah. Challenged. So he encourages men to reject the victim mentality.
Yes.
Focus on
taking control of your life, building your strengths, making a positive impact.
It's about reclaiming your power.
Exactly. Becoming the hero of your own story.
Yeah.
And he provides a roadmap for how men can do that. You know, he offers practical strategies for overcoming shame, building confidence, finding your purpose, navigating the challenges of the modern world.
And connecting with other men.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Forming supportive communities.
Yeah.
Working together to create a better future.
Yeah. It's like he's saying, hey guys, we're in this together.
We are.
You know, we can either let these forces define us,
right,
or we can rise above and create something better.
We have a choice.
Yeah.
We have a choice.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes Riker's book so powerful.
It is.
It's this message of hope and empowerment.
It is a message of hope.
Yeah, for men who are feeling lost, confused, and demoralized.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that we have the power.
We do.
To change our lives.
We do.
To challenge the status quo and to create a world that we're proud to be part of.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about taking control, creating a better world for ourselves and for future generations.
Well, that's a perfect segue to our next topic.
Okay.
Which is the economic impact of feminist policies. And Riker dives deep into this.
He does.
And I think this is going to resonate with a lot of you guys.
Oh, I think so.
Who are feeling the squeeze out there.
Absolutely.
He starts by tackling affirmative action head on. And he argues that, you know, while the intention behind it might have been noble,
right,
the actual implementation often creates unintended consequences that harm men.
Absolutely.
And he cites studies showing how men, especially white men, are often passed over for jobs and promotions.
Right.
Even when they're more qualified, in favor of women and minorities simply to meet diversity quotas.
Right.
It's like the playing field is tilted against us from the start.
It's not just about, you know, jobs and promotions.
Right.
He also talks about how this can affect, you know, college admissions, scholarships, even things like government contracts.
It's across the board.
It is.
Yeah.
And it creates this sense of unfairness, resentment among men who feel like they're being discriminated against.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from the economic downsides.
No, he doesn't.
Right. Like, he argues that if competence takes a backseat to fulfilling quotas in critical fields, like healthcare, engineering, finance, the overall quality of services. And
welcome back.
Last time, we were talking about how Conrad Riker in Beyond the Feminist Veil really unpacks this historical evolution of feminism. But he also dives into something that he calls shadow feminism. And that really struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
Because it's like this unspoken resentment that seems to kind of simmer beneath the surface in some interactions with women.
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered that?
Absolutely. It's something that Riker argues is very prevalent, even if it's not always conscious.
Okay.
You know, it's not like women are walking around thinking, I'm going to use shadow feminism to manipulate this guy.
Right.
But it's kind of like this undercurrent of anger or bitterness towards men that stems from, you know, perceived past hurts or injustices.
So even if a woman hasn't personally experienced something bad from a man, she might still harbor this resentment based on what she's been told or what she believes about men in general.
Based on the narrative that she's been fed about men.
Yeah, so it's like, how do you even begin to address something like that?
Well, Riker believes that the first step is awareness.
Okay.
You know, men need to recognize the signs of shadow feminism and understand how it can impact their relationships and their overall well-being.
So if you feel like you're being subtly undermined or manipulated, try to address it directly, but
calmly and respectfully.
You
know, it's not about attacking or blaming.
Right, but what if it's not something you can easily pinpoint?
Right.
Like, what if it's just this?
Yeah, if it's just a general feeling.
General feeling of negativity or resentment.
That's when it gets tricky.
Yeah.
And Riker suggests that sometimes the best course of action is to simply disengage from those relationships or situations.
So it's like choosing your battles.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's better to walk away.
Sometimes it's better to walk away.
Than to try to fight a losing battle. Yeah, and he emphasizes that this isn't about blaming women or painting them as the enemy.
No, it's not about that at all.
It's about recognizing that these dynamics exist. Understanding their roots. And then finding ways to navigate them in a way that preserves
your own
well-being. Yeah. And he also encourages men to examine their own behavior. Right.
Make sure you're not contributing to this cycle of resentment.
Are you
treating the women in your life?
The women in your life with respect.
With respect and consideration.
Yeah. Are you being honest?
Are you being honest and authentic?
And authentic in your interactions.
Yeah. It's a two-way street.
It is. Now, shifting gears a bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about something that I know is a major concern for a lot of guys out there. And that's the legal system.
Yes.
Particularly in a context of family law. And Riker doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't.
On his criticism.
It is not.
Of how the system is biased against men.
He believes it's very much biased against men.
Yeah, and he goes into great detail about how the family court system often operates on this presumption of guilt against fathers. Particularly in custody disputes.
Especially in custody disputes.
And he argues that there's this deeply ingrained belief that mothers are inherently better suited to raising children.
And he challenges that assumption.
And then
he says there's no evidence to support that.
Yeah, and that leads to unfair rulings.
It does.
Right.
It does.
That could devastate fathers and deprive children of meaningful relationships with their dads.
And he provides a lot of examples of that, you know, where fathers are basically shut out of their children's lives.
And it's not just about custody.
No.
Right.
No, it's about finances, too.
He talks about child support.
Alimony.
And how that can be crippling for men.
Yes.
Even when those payments are based on outdated income information.
Right. Or don't take into account the father's current financial situation.
So it's like you can do everything right. Be a good husband, good father, good provider. And then when the marriage ends, You get punished for it.
You get punished for it.
Yeah.
And he argues that these systems,
Mm-hmm.
while sometimes necessary to protect vulnerable spouses,
Right.
can be weaponized against men, leading to financial ruin.
And driving some men to suicide.
And even suicide.
Yeah.
So it's a
scary thought.
It's a very serious issue.
Yeah, and it ties back to that sense of powerlessness
It does.
that we've been talking about.
Yes, it does.
This feeling that the system is rigged.
The system is rigged against you.
Against us.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. So what does Riker suggest
Well,
men do in these situations? I mean, it can feel like you're up against a brick wall when the entire system
it does.
seems stacked against you.
It feels very hopeless.
Yeah.
But he encourages men to be proactive,
Okay.
to educate themselves about their rights, to seek legal counsel from attorneys who specialize in men's issues.
Okay.
And he also emphasizes the importance of documenting everything.
Okay.
Every interaction, every expense, every attempt to connect with your children.
So you almost have to be like your own
You have to be your
own advocate.
Your own detective.
Yeah.
Just to have a fighting chance.
It's exhausting.
It is. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's necessary.
And he stresses that it's crucial for men to fight for their rights as fathers.
It is.
And that they're not alone.
And that they're not alone.
It is.
There are groups out there who are fighting for fathers' rights.
Yeah. And sometimes just knowing that
Yeah.
there are other people out there going through the same thing.
It can be very comforting.
Yeah.
To know that you're not alone in this.
Now, I want to switch gears again and talk about another
Okay.
sensitive topic that he addresses,
Mm-hmm.
and that is false accusations.
Yes.
Particularly in the context of the hashtag #MeToo movement.
Right.
And he acknowledges
It is.
the importance of the hashtag #MeToo movement
Mm.
in bringing attention to the issue of sexual assaults and holding perpetrators accountable.
Mm.
But he also expresses concern that the movement has created a climate where due process
Right.
is sometimes overlooked.
Sometimes over.
And men can be easily accused and condemned
Oh.
without sufficient evidence.
Yes, and he uses that phrase, the pendulum has swung too far.
It's like now there's this presumption of guilt
There is.
against men in these situations.
And he's concerned about that. He
Yeah.
says, we have to be careful
Yeah.
that we don't create a situation where men are automatically assumed to be guilty.
So how do we find that balance
Right.
between believing women and also ensuring
Right. It's a very
the men are not unjustly punished?
delicate balance.
Yeah.
And it's something that we as a society are still trying to figure out.
Yeah. And he encourages men to
To be aware of this issue.
be aware of this issue and to
Take steps to protect themselves.
take steps to protect themselves. Like
Mm-hmm.
being cautious about their interactions with women,
Mm-hmm.
documenting any potential misunderstandings,
Mm.
and seeking legal counsel immediately if they are accused.
It's sad that we even have to think about these things.
It is sad.
But in today's climate,
In today's climate,
it's important for men to be aware of these risks.
yeah, it's not about living in fear.
No.
It's about being
It's about being smart.
smart,
Informed.
informed, and
taking precautions.
yeah, and he emphasizes that this is not about
Right.
undermining the legitimate claims of women who have experienced
It's exactly.
sexual assault.
It's not about that.
It's about making sure that the pursuit of justice
is fair and equitable for everyone involved.
is fair and equitable for
Everyone.
everyone involved.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's about finding that
Middle ground.
middle ground,
That balance.
that balance between protecting victims
Yes.
and ensuring that,
that the innocent aren't unjustly punished.
yeah. And it's a complex issue.
It is a very complex issue.
I appreciate that he doesn't shy away from it.
He doesn't.
And he tackles it head on.
He tackles it head on.
Yeah, and speaking of tackling things head on,
Right.
he also critiques the woke movement.
Yes. He does.
And he goes into quite a bit of detail about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really interested in that section of the book.
Okay.
What's his take on how wokeness is impacting men specifically?
Well, he argues that wokeness, with its focus on identity politics and its tendency to view everything through this lens of power and oppression, has created a culture where men are often portrayed as the villains.
Yeah.
He sees this as an extension of that anti-male narrative that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
where men are inherently suspect simply by virtue of their gender.
And it's not just about, being called out for your privilege.
Right.
It's about this feeling that
Yes.
you can't say anything.
You're walking on eggshells all the time.
They're walking on eggshells.
We're afraid of offending someone or being labeled a sexist or misogynist.
Yeah.
And he argues that this climate of fear and censorship is incredibly damaging to open dialogue and debate.
It really is.
He believes that it's essential for men to be able to express their opinions and their perspectives without fear of retribution, without fear of being canceled or losing their jobs.
It's like, how can we have a meaningful conversation about any of these issues if one side is constantly being silenced?
Exactly. You can't have a real discussion if people are afraid to speak their minds.
Yeah. And he also critiques the way in which wokeness often promotes victimhood and a sense of grievance.
Right.
This idea that
you're always the victim.
You're always a victim.
Someone's always oppressing you.
Right.
You have no power.
You're powerless.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that can be especially damaging to men.
It can.
Because we're already grappling with this sense of emasculation and this pressure to be stoic and unemotional.
It's like you're being told that your feelings are invalid.
It's like you can't feel anything.
Your experiences don't count. You're not allowed to have feelings about this.
Yeah, and he argues that this is a very dangerous trend.
A very dangerous trend that needs to be
challenged.
Yeah. And he encourages men to reject
the victim mentality.
And focus on
taking control.
Taking control of your life. Building your strengths.
And making a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive.
It's about reclaiming your power.
Exactly. Becoming the hero of your own story.
Yeah.
And he provides a roadmap for how men can do that. He offers practical strategies for overcoming shame, building confidence, finding your purpose, navigating the challenges of the modern world.
And connecting with other men. Forming these supportive communities.
Yeah, forming supportive communities.
Working together
to create a better future.
Yeah.
He's saying, we're all in this together, guys.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, guys, we're in this together.
We can either let these forces define us.
Right.
Or we can rise above and create something better.
We have a choice.
Yeah.
We have a choice.
And I think that's what makes his book so powerful.
It is a powerful message.
Just this message of hope and empowerment for men.
Yes, it's a message of
who are feeling lost, confused, demoralized.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's this reminder that we have the power to change our lives.
We do.
To challenge the status quo and to create a world that we're proud to be a part of.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about taking control of our lives, creating a better world for ourselves and for future generations.
Well, that's a perfect segue to our next topic.
Okay.
Which is the economic impact of feminist policies. And Riker dives deep into this.
He does.
And I think this is going to resonate with a lot of you guys out there who are
I think so too.
Feeling the squeeze.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he starts by tackling affirmative action head on. And he argues that, while the intention behind it may have been noble.
Right. The idea was good.
The actual implementation often creates these unintended consequences.
It does.
That can harm men.
Absolutely.
And he cites studies showing how men, especially white men, are often passed over.
For jobs and promotions.
Even when they're more qualified.
Right, even when they're more qualified.
In favor of women and minorities.
Simply to meet diversity quotas.
Just to meet those quotas. It's like the playing field is tilted against us.
It is. It's not a level playing field anymore.
From the start.
No.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
And he's not afraid to say that.
He doesn't shy away from?
No, he doesn't.
The economic downsides of that?
He doesn't.
Right. Like, he argues that if competence takes a back seat to fulfilling quotas in these critical fields.
Like healthcare, engineering, finance.
Critical
fields like that.
The overall quality.
Of services.
Of services and expertise.
And expertise could suffer. And that ultimately impacts everyone, not just men.
That's a point that I hadn't really considered before. I mean, I get the desire for representation and diversity.
Sure.
But not at the expense of
competence.
Competence and fairness.
Yeah. And that's his point. He's saying that true equality should be based on merit.
Right.
And individual achievement, not on
arbitrary quotas.
Arbitrary quotas that can potentially lower standards and create resentment.
He also delves into the financial impact of divorce settlements and alimony payments.
He does, and he provides some pretty...
And I know that's a big issue.
Harrowing example.
For a lot of guys out there.
Of men who have been financially crippled by these systems.
Yeah.
Even when they were responsible and loving partners during the marriage.
Yeah, it's like you can do everything right.
Mm-hmm.
Be a good husband, good father, good provider.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the marriage ends, you get
punished for it.
Punished for it.
And he validates that feeling that a lot of men have.
Yeah.
That the system is rigged against them.
Yeah.
That,
it's like this expectation that men should just suck it up and pay.
Pay no matter what.
Even if it means sacrificing their own well-being.
Even if it means bankrupting themselves.
Yeah. And he argues that this is not only unjust.
It's unjust.
But it's also harmful to children.
It is.
Who benefit from having both parents actively involved in their lives.
And it sends a message to the children.
Yeah.
That their father's well-being doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That he's expendable.
Yeah.
And that's a very damaging message to send.
So what does he suggest men do in these situations?
He encourages men to be proactive, to educate themselves about their rights, to seek legal counsel from attorneys who specialize in men's rights during divorce proceedings.
Okay.
And he also emphasizes the importance of having a prenuptial agreement.
Okay.
If you're going to get married, you need to protect yourself.
So it's like you have to go in prepared for the worst case scenario.
You do. You have to.
Even if you have the best intention.
Because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
People change.
Yeah. And he also encourages men to be proactive in advocating for change.
Yes.
To these systems.
Like these systems.
To fight for fairness.
To fight for fairness.
And equality for both men and women in these
family courts.
Family courts.
And in financial settlements.
It's about taking a stand.
Yes.
Right?
It is.
It's about demanding to be treated fairly.
Demanding to be treated fairly.
Not accepting the status quo.
Not accepting the status quo.
When it's clearly unjust.
When it's clearly unjust.
Yeah, and he connects this to his broader critique of the cultural and political landscape.
Yes.
He argues that the rise of what he calls cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism.
With its emphasis on collectivism. Social engineering. The erosion of traditional values.
Yes.
Has contributed to this climate.
Where
men are often seen as the enemy.
Where men are the enemy.
Yeah.
And he talks about how...
So he's not just talking about...
No, he's talking about...
individual policies or legal battles.
A much larger shift.
He's talking about
a larger ideological shift.
A larger ideological shift.
That's happening in society.
Yeah, it's happening.
That is undermining
Yeah.
men's place in the world.
It's like we've lost our footing.
We have.
Our sense of place in the world.
We've lost our sense of purpose, our sense of belonging.
Yeah, and in that void, these other narratives have taken root.
And these other narratives...
Yeah, narratives that tell us that.
Are very hostile to men.
Yeah. We're the problem, we're the enemy.
You are the problem, you are the enemy.
Well,
you're the cause of all the world's ills.
Yeah.
And he says,
That's not true.
He doesn't want men to despair, though.
No, he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
He offers a path forward.
He does.
A way to reclaim our masculinity and build a better future. And he encourages men to
be critical thinkers. To question the narratives that are being pushed on them.
To question those narratives. To not just accept what they're being told.
Yeah. Not just blindly accept.
Right.
The media.
Academia, the politicians. We're telling you.
Yeah.
To think for yourselves.
To think for yourself.
To do your own research. To come to your own conclusions.
You can stand up for your values.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Even when it's unpopular. Even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
To stand up for what you believe in.
So it's not just about complaining about the problem.
No.
It's about being part of.
It's about being part of the solution. It's about taking action.
Yeah.
To make things better.
And he really believes that men have a vital role to play in the world.
He does. He believes that men have a unique and important contribution to make.
But we need to be proactive in shaping the future we want.
Step up.
Yeah.
And take our rightful place.
It's about being leaders.
Yes.
Taking responsibility.
Yes.
Fighting for what we believe in.
Fighting for what we believe in.
Right.
Absolutely.
And he provides a lot of practical advice for how men can do that.
He does.
In their personal lives, in their communities, and in the larger cultural and political arena.
Yes, he talks about
Yeah.
the importance of getting involved in politics, in your community,
Yeah.
in your schools.
Being a voice for change.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful discussion.
It has been.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From, shadow feminism to the challenges of the family court system to the impact of woke culture and the economic consequences of feminist policies. And we've only just scratched the surface.
We've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore. Welcome back to our deep dive into Conrad Riker's Beyond the Feminist Veil. We've covered a lot of ground, from the history of feminism and shadow feminism and the challenges men face in the legal system, the impact of woke culture, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
But now I want to shift gears and talk about solutions.
Okay.
What does Riker actually propose that men do to reclaim their masculinity and build a more fulfilling life?
Well, he offers a pretty multifaceted approach, and it starts with self-improvement.
Okay.
He really emphasizes the importance of physical fitness, not just for the health benefits.
Right. But for the psychological impact.
So it's not just about vanity.
No, not at all.
It's about feeling good in your own skin.
It's about feeling good.
Yeah.
It's about projecting strength, having that physical presence.
Yeah.
And he also emphasizes the importance of discipline and purpose.
Okay.
He believes that setting clear goals and working towards them with dedication is crucial for achieving success.
That resonates with me.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of your life, not just drifting along, but like actively shaping.
Actively shaping the future that you want.
Yeah.
He talks about creating routines, setting boundaries, holding yourself accountable. He believes that discipline is the foundation for building self-confidence and achieving your goals.
And he connects that with finding your purpose.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
That thing that gives your life meaning and direction.
Yes. That thing that gets you up in the morning.
Yeah.
That makes you want to make a difference in the world.
It's that fire in your belly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that thing that lights you up.
He encourages men to find their passion, whether it's in their work, their relationships, their hobbies, a cause they believe in. It's about having something that drives you forward, even when things get tough.
Yeah. And he also talks about the importance of men connecting with other men. Forming those strong bonds of brotherhood and support.
Yes, he really believes that men need other men in their lives who they can confide in, who understand their struggles.
It's something I've experienced firsthand, like having that group of guys who you can trust, who have your back.
It makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it's invaluable.
Absolutely.
And he suggests, joining men's groups.
Joining men's groups, finding mentors, or just reaching out to other men in your community who share your values.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also talks about this idea of being a role model.
Yes, he talks about the importance of being a role model, especially
for younger generations.
Right, yes.
It's about showing boys and young men what it means to be a good man.
Exactly.
To be strong, responsible, respectful.
Respectful, and to live with integrity.
Yeah.
And to show them that there's a better way, a more fulfilling way to be a man.
Yeah.
Than what they might be seeing.
What they're
being bombarded with.
Or in popular culture.
Yeah. Now, we talked about how Riker encourages men to reclaim their role as protectors and providers.
Right.
What does he mean by that?
Well, he argues that these instincts are inherent in men, but they've been demonized and suppressed by modern society.
And he doesn't advocate for a return to rigid gender roles.
No, not at all.
Right. He's talking about a balanced approach.
Yeah.
Where men embrace their natural desire to protect and provide for their loved ones.
So it's not about controlling women or dictating their lives.
No, it's about being that strong, supportive presence.
Yeah.
Someone they can rely on, someone who will be there for them.
It's about being a man of action.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Who steps up. Takes responsibility for his family, his community, his world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he also talks about the importance of men finding their voice.
Yes.
Speaking out against injustice.
He does.
What does he mean by that?
Well, he argues that men have been silenced for too long. You know, we've been conditioned to be passive.
Yeah, to be agreeable.
Agreeable, even when
we see things.
Things are that we know are wrong.
Wrong?
Well,
We don't speak up.
it's like we've been taught to keep our heads down and not make waves.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he says, no, you need to break free from that silence.
Yeah.
Find your voice.
Speak your truth.
Speak your truth.
Even if it's unpopular.
Even if it's unpopular.
Or controversial.
Or controversial.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, who will?
It's about having that courage to stand up.
It is.
For what you believe in.
It's about courage.
Even when it feels like
you're standing alone.
Leadership.
Yeah.
You know, it's about...
And he believes that men have a moral obligation.
He does. He believes that men have a moral obligation to challenge injustice.
To fight for what's right.
To fight for what's right.
Yeah.
To be a force for positive change in the world.
It's about stepping into your power as a man.
Yes.
And using that power for good.
And using that power for good.
Yeah. And he also encourages men to be more assertive in their relationships.
He does. He talks about how...
What does he mean by that?
Men have been taught to be nice guys, to be agreeable and accommodating, even at the expense of their own needs and desires. And he says that this kind of passivity can actually be harmful in relationships.
Yeah.
It can lead to resentment. It can lead to a loss of self-respect. It can lead to an imbalance of power.
So it's about finding that balance between being respectful of your partner's needs,
right,
but also being true to yourself.
But being true to yourself.
Yeah.
It's about communicating your needs clearly, setting boundaries, you know, being willing to stand up for yourself and being willing to walk away from relationships
they're no longer serving you.
That are no longer serving you.
Yeah. It's about being an equal partner.
Yes.
Not a doormat.
Not a doormat.
Yeah.
And recognizing that healthy relationships require both partners to be assertive and to respect each other's boundaries.
He also talks about the importance of men reconnecting with their spirituality.
Yes, he does. And what's his take on that?
Well, he believes that a lot of men have become disconnected from their spiritual roots and that this has led to a sense of emptiness and meaninglessness in their lives.
Yeah, and he does...
And he doesn't prescribe any particular religion or spiritual path. He just encourages men to find something that resonates with them, something that gives them a sense of purpose and connection to something greater than themselves.
It's about finding that source of strength.
Yes.
Guidance.
That inner compass.
That inner compass.
And helps you
navigate the challenges of life.
Yeah, navigate the challenges of life. So whether it's through religion, nature, meditation, or some other form of spiritual practice.
He believes that connecting with your spirituality can help you find peace, purpose, and resilience.
In a world that can often feel very...
In a world that can often feel very chaotic and overwhelming.
Chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know this has been a pretty intense deep dive.
It has been a lot.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of heavy stuff.
We have.
But I want to end on a note of hope.
Okay.
Riker's book is ultimately a message of empowerment.
It is.
A call for men to rise above the challenge.
To rise above the challenge
that they face and to create a better future.
For themselves and for the world.
For themselves and for the world. Yeah. And he reminds us that we have the power to choose how we respond to the world.
We do.
To choose our own path and to create a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
It's about taking control.
Yeah.
And creating the life that you want.
So if you're feeling lost, confused, demoralized, if you're wondering what it means to be a man in the world today, I highly recommend checking out Conrad Riker's
Beyond the Feminist Veil.
Beyond the Feminist Veil.
It's a great book.
It's a challenging book.
It is.
But it's also an inspiring book.
But it's also very inspiring.
Yeah, it's a call to action.
It is a call to action.
A roadmap for reclaiming your masculinity.
And creating the life that you deserve.
And creating the life you deserve. You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Yes, you can.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep fighting the good fight. Yearbook.